The chandelier above the ballroom cast a golden glow, spilling light across polished marble floors and the faces of souls elite. The air hummed with polite laughter, champagne glasses clinking in rhythm with a live string quartet. Tonight wasn't just another wedding, it was a merger sealed with silk and rings. Your heart thrummed beneath the heavy embroidery of your hanbok inspired gown, not from love, at least not yet, but from the sheer weight of what this night meant. The John Group and your family's business empire had shaken hands long before you had even said yes. Beside you stood John Jungkook in a tailored black suit that looked like it had been sewn into him. His dark hair was slicked back but rebelliously soft at the ends, and those sharp doe eyes scanned the crowd like a hunter assessing his territory. "Smile," he murmured, tilting his head toward you. His breath brushed your ear. "They are watching." You forced a small smile. He responded with a grin that could disarm a room. When the priest announced you husband and wife, Jungkook didn't hesitate. He cupped your face, eyes locked on yours, not with cold obligation, but with a heat that startled you. His lips met yours gently but deliberately, as if to say, "You are mine now." The crowd erupted in applause. It wasn't the fairy tale you had imagined as a child, it was something sharper, realer. Time skip. Later at the reception, the endless train of well-wishers blurred together. Business partners, relatives, socialites, and then a voice didn't recognize but would never forget. Jungkooka. She appeared like she belonged in every corner of his life. Soa. Slim, elegant, dressed in soft lilac that made her look ethereal. She moved through the crowd like water flowing toward him. Jungkook's entire face lit up. "Soa," he opened his arms, pulling her into a warm hug, entirely unaware of the flicker in your gaze. You stepped closer automatically. Jungkook turned to you, hand at your waist. "Vian, this is Soa, my best friend since kindergarten." "Best friend," she repeated, smiling sweetly, but there was something measured in her eyes. "I've heard so much about you. Congratulations on the wedding." "Thank you," you replied politely. Throughout the evening, Soa was never too far. She chatted with Jungkook's parents, laughed with his friends, and lingered near him like a familiar shadow. At one point, you caught her watching the two of you dance, her smile unwavering, but her hands clenched in front of her dress. When the night finally quieted and the two of you retreated to the bridal suite, you sat at the vanity, removing your jewelry piece by piece. Jungkook leaned against the door frame, bow tie undone, shirt slightly open at the collar. "You did well today," he said casually, eyes lingering on your reflection in the mirror. You gave a small nod. "It's a partnership after all." His smirk softened into something almost boyish. You have no idea how long I waited for this." You turned to face him fully. "Waited?" He stepped closer, his eyes lowering. "Back when our parents first started working together, I noticed you. You didn't even look at me once, but I looked at you every single time." For a moment, silence wrapped around you. The confession was unexpected, heavy in the air. You met his gaze and saw something raw flicker behind the charm, a quiet obsession, years in the making. Then he chuckled lightly, breaking the tension. "But we'll have the time for all that." He extended a hand toward you, eyes glinting. "Come here, Mrs. John." And just like that, the night that began with business ended with something much more personal, something neither of you could yet name. Time skip. Married life with Jungkook was surprising. For someone you barely knew a few months ago, he had a way of filling spaces. Your home, your routine, your thoughts, like he had always belonged there. Morning coffees became playful battles for the last piece of bread. Late nights turned into whispered conversations about everything and nothing. And though your marriage began as strategy, it started to feel alarmingly real. But she was always there. Soa, Jungkook's best friend, the constant third wheel you never invited. It was your 1 month wedding anniversary. Jungkook had booked an entire rooftop restaurant overlooking the Han River, fairy lights strung across like stars fallen to earth. You arrived in a sleek black dress, the wind teasing at your hair. Jungkook turned at the sound of your heels, and for a moment his entire face softened. "Damn," he whispered, stepping closer. "You're going to make it hard for me to eat tonight." You rolled your eyes, but your cheeks warmed. "Flirt." He leaned down, murmuring near your ear, "Only for you, Mrs. John." The waiter led you to a candlelit table. Just as Jungkook reached across to hold your hand, a familiar voice chirped from behind. "Jungkookie, there you are." Your fingers froze mid-air. Soa appeared at the entrance, dressed casually, waving at him like this was a college hangout, not your romantic dinner. Jungkook blinked, surprised. "Soa, what are you?" "I was nearby and I remembered you talking about this place last week. I thought I would drop by. Hope I'm not interrupting," she said with a smile that didn't match her words. She was interrupting. Jungkook scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. Sure, join us then." You turned to him slowly. "Seriously?" He met your gaze, sheepish but oblivious. "She's my best friend. It's fine, right?" You forced a polite smile, but your knuckles tightened under the tablecloth. And just like that, the dinner became 3 plates, 3 glasses, and 0 intimacy. Soa dominated the conversation with the stories of their childhood, inside jokes, and moments you weren't part of. Jungkook laughed freely, occasionally glancing at you, but missing the storm quietly building behind your calm expression. Time skip. It became a pattern. 11:47 p.m. The house was quiet, lights dimmed. You were curled up in a bed, half asleep, when Jungkook's phone lit up beside him. "Soa calling." Jungkook answered immediately, voice warm. "Hey, what's up?" You turned slightly, watching his face glow in the dim light. She was upset about a project. He talked her through it patiently, laughing occasionally at her dramatic rants. You lay there silently, his laughter filling the room that was supposed to be yours and his. When he hung up after nearly 30 minutes, he turned to you with an innocent grin. She was freaking out about her team. You know how she gets. You didn't respond, you just turned your back, pretending to be half asleep. But your heart didn't settle for a long time. Time skip. One Saturday, you decided to redecorate the living room. The space still looked like a model house, not a home. You picked out warm beige curtains and a soft rug that reflected your taste. Just as you finished arranging the vases, the doorbell rang. Soa again. She walked in like she owned the place, arms full of snacks. "I was bored, so I came over." "Oh, you changed the curtains?" "Yes," you said calmly. "They make the room brighter." She tilted her head, disapproving. "But Jungkook always liked the darker ones, right, Jungkookie?" Jungkook, who had just walked out of the kitchen with 2 mugs, froze. I mean, I do like the darker ones, but..." You crossed your arms. "This is our home, Soha. Maybe he likes it now." The silence that followed was thick. Soha gave a little laugh to brush it off, but the sting lingered. Later, when she left, Jungkook tried to smooth things over. "She didn't mean anything by it. She's always been like that. She's not your wife," you said quietly, not looking at him. He paused. Something flickered in his eyes. The first hint that he noticed your discomfort, but he still didn't act on it. Days turned into weeks, and every intrusion built upon the last like layers of invisible weight pressing on your chest. You didn't want to be petty, you didn't want to be that wife. But each time she crossed the line, Jungkook didn't draw it for her. Something inside you began to ache and burn. Time skip. Rain tapped steadily against the floor-to-ceiling windows, the rhythm filling the silence that had stretched between you and Jungkook all evening. The living room was dim except for the warm glow of a single lamp painting the room in honey-colored shadows. You sat curled at the end of the sofa, still stung from Soa's latest to drop by. Jungkook had spent dinner assuring you she meant no harm again. Finally, you broke the quiet. "Do you even see what she's doing, Jungkook?" He looked up from the glass of wine he had been nursing. "She's my friend. You're reading too much into..." You laughed bitterly. "Reading too much? She inserts herself into everything between us. Dinner, our home, our nights. She's always been like that." He cut in, stepping toward you. "And I've always been able to handle it." You rose to face him. "Well, now you're not just handling yourself, there's me too." For a second only the rain answered. Jungkook's jaw clenched, his eyes darkening, not with anger at you, but something deeper. He took another slow step forward until you could feel the warmth radiating from his chest. "You really think I don't notice you?" he murmured. That I don't choose you every single time I breathe? Your breath caught. He reached up, fingers brushing a damp strand of hair from your cheek. The touch was feather light, but it made your heart stutter. You drive me crazy, he said, voice low and rough, in the best way possible. You opened your mouth to reply, but it didn't give you the chance. He slid a hand to the small of your back, pulling you flush against him. His other hand tilted your chin up. His gaze softened for a heartbeat, checking, waiting. You didn't pull away. Then his lips found yours. The kiss wasn't gentle this time. It was hungry, all the weeks of tension and jealousy and unspoken feelings pouring out at once. You gripped the lapels of his shirt to steady yourself as he deepened it, rain pounding harder outside like a drum roll. He broke away just enough to whisper against your skin, I don't want anyone between us ever. You swallowed, whispering back, then show me. He exhaled sharply, forehead resting against yours. The possessive edge in his eyes softened into something vulnerable, almost boyish. Slowly he traced the line of your jaw with his thumb, kissing you again, slower this time, full of promise. He led you toward the window, rain streaking down behind you like a curtain. His hand settled at your waist, your fingers threaded through his hair. The world outside blurred away. The lamp's light dimmed to nothing but the outline of two figures wrapped in each other, the rain hiding your whispered confessions and quiet laughter. The night melted from storm to warmth, every touch speaking louder than words. The rain had passed, leaving soul washed clean. Time skip. In the days following that night, something between you and Jungkook shifted. He still flirted shamelessly, still held you close in the dark, but there was a new undercurrent in the way his gaze lingered, protective, possessive. For the first time, Jungkook began to notice. It started with your weekend trip to Jeju, a quiet 3-day escape Jungkook had planned, a place where he had promised it would be just us, no boardrooms, no best friends. You were walking hand in hand through hotel lobby when a too familiar voice called out, Jungkookie. Your heart stopped. Soa stood by the reception desk, sunglass perched atop her head, a suitcase beside her. Surprise, she chopped. I had some vacation days left. Thought I would tag along. Don't worry, I booked my own room. Jungkook's smile faltered. Soa, this is supposed to be couple time. I know, she interrupted lightly, waving a hand. I'll stay out of your way, I promise. But she didn't. She showed up at the beach, joined you at dinner accidentally, and monopolized Jungkook's attention during a sunset bonfire with stories of their childhood. For the first time, Jungkook's laughter around her seemed strained. You caught him glancing at you often, reading the quiet in your eyes. Something in him tightened. Time skip. The breaking point came a few nights later back in Seoul. You had invited a few of Jungkook's business associates and friends for dinner at home. Everything was warm and light until Soha, after a few glasses of wine, leaned across the table with a playful smile. Honestly, it still feels weird sometimes, she said. I mean, this house, this life, it was supposed to be me here, right, Jungkook? The room went still. Jungkook froze, chopsticks suspended in midair. You felt the words like a slow sting, but what shocked you more was the anger that flashed in Jungkook's eyes. He set his chopsticks down with deliberate calm. Soa, he said evenly, that was out of line. She blinked, suddenly sober. I was joking. It didn't sound like it. His voice carried an edge you had never heard directed at her before. The rest of the dinner passed in awkward politeness, but something had cracked. Time skip. 2 days later, Soha didn't show up at her usual haunt. No texts, no late night calls. You thought it was a relief until you found her waiting in the cafe near your office. Eyes red, hands clenched around a cup of untouched coffee. Wine, she began, voice shaking. I got a call this morning. The John Group is launching a new branch in Canada. They offered me a transfer, effective immediately, no discussion. You frowned, but you never applied for that. She shook her head. They said Jungkook recommended it. Personally, he told the board it would be good for me to lead the project. I have worked for years to build my career here. My family is here. My life is here. The puzzle clicked together in one cold rush. His quiet anger, his sudden protectiveness, his power. Jungkook hadn't just drawn a boundary. He had moved her. Time skip. The house was quiet when you walked in, but it wasn't the comforting kind of quiet. It was heavy. Every footstep down the hall toward Jungkook's study felt louder than it should have. You crossed the room until you were standing in front of his desk. You didn't handle it. You blindsided her. You pulled strings to have her shipped half away across the world without even talking to me about it. His jaw tightened. She wouldn't stop whine. She was in our space constantly. She undermined you at dinner. You saw it. Yes, I saw it, you snapped. I felt jealous and hurt and angry. But what you did isn't a solution, it's punishment. He stood abruptly. I did what I had to do, protect what's mine. The words hit you like a slap. I'm not a thing you own, Jungkook, and she's not some pawn you get to move off the board because she's inconvenient. His voice dropped. She was hurting you. Then you talk to her. We talk to her. You don't wreck her life to make yours neater. The possessiveness in his tone chilled you. You don't get to protect me by ruining someone else. You said quietly, that's not love, that's control. For the first time, his confidence wavered. Certainty in his eyes cracked. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking away. I couldn't stand seeing you upset anymore. That doesn't give you the right, you said softly but firmly. Time skip. Later that week, you met Soha in a quiet park. Her eyes were still rimmed red, but her voice was steadier. I was wrong, she said before you could speak. I didn't realize how much I was inserting myself into something that wasn't mine anymore. I thought if I stayed close enough, maybe I wouldn't have to accept that things changed. You sat beside her. You hurt me, Soha, but what he did to you was wrong too, and I told him that. Tears welled up in her eyes. Thank you. No one's ever stood up for me like that, especially not the wife of the man She cut herself off with a shaky laugh. Used to, you echoed gently. She nodded. I'll accept the transfer, but on my terms. Not because he forced me, because I need a start. You squeezed her hand. It was the first real peace between you. Time skip. That night, Jungkook found you on the balcony, the city lights reflected in his eyes as he spoke quietly. I was wrong, he said. I thought protecting you meant controlling everything around you. I know better now. I'll fix this with her. You held his gaze. I needed to hear that. He stepped closer, tentative this time, reaching for your hand like he wasn't sure you would take it. You let him. The warmth of his fingers against yours didn't erase what had happened, but it was a start. Time skip. The next few days moved more gently, as if the house itself had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. Jungkook had followed through. He had met Soha in person, apologized for the way he had handled things, and given her the space to decide for herself. She accepted the transfer on her own terms, and the three of you parted on honest ground rather than resentment. It was late evening when you stepped out onto the balcony. The air was cool, the city below pulsed with quiet life. A faint breeze lifted your hair. For the first time in weeks, your chest didn't feel tight. The sliding door opened softly behind you. Couldn't sleep? Jungkook's voice was low, careful. You shook your head, not turning around just yet. Just needed some air. He moved up beside you, hands resting on the railing. For a while, you both just stood there, watching the cars snake through the streets far below. You were right, he said finally, about everything. You glanced at him. He wasn't hiding behind his usual easy grin. His eyes were open, honest. I was scared, he admitted. I've liked you for so long, and when I finally had you here with me, I didn't know where to put all that. I thought if I controlled the world around us, maybe I wouldn't lose you. You took a slow breath. You don't have to control everything, Jungkook. You just have to trust me, trust us. His lips quirked into a small, genuine smile. I can do that. He reached for your hand, intertwining his fingers with yours. This time there was no possessiveness in the gesture, only warmth. Then softly, almost shyly, he asked, "Dance with me?" You laughed quietly. "There's no music." He stepped closer, resting one hand on your waist. Then we'll make our own. The two of you began to sway slow and unhurried. The city lights blurred into a soft glow around you. Jungkook's forehead rested against yours, and the silence between you was full, not empty. "Thank you," he whispered, "for calling me out, for staying." You met his eyes, "For learning." He kissed you then, gentle and sure, not a claim but a promise. Somewhere in the distance, a song floated faintly up from the street, a busker singing under the streetlight. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, just like this.